The root of making sketches interesting to look at is having the ability to spark our viewers' imaginations, activating a viewer's internal dialogue to ask questions: what's going on here? What does this mean? Or this makes me think of. When you think of story and sketching, most people think of comic books or storyboards for a movie, something very sequential with a beginning, middle, and end. When I say story in this context, I'm not talking about story in a traditional sense. The context of story in the sense of this lesson is about using multiple sketches on one paper to provoke a viewer's imagination, to create an impression of something is going on, without being literal in the sense of spoon-feeding a subject to our viewers or straight up telling them what the storyline is. To suggest and let them connect the dots, creating their own story based on how they perceive your sketches. The way we're going to arrive at these kinds of sketches depends on our process of exploration as we sketch. The root of the story is imagination. Everyone has imagination, but how do we add it to our work? When you really break down truly interesting stories, they're essentially broken down into two different elements. Every creative thought and imaginative idea involves putting together at least two elements in a unique way. When you combine two of anything in a sketch, an interesting idea is created. What's great about adding imagination and story into our sketches is that it can be a natural part of the process, all discovered as we sketch, sketching to explore without any preconceived expectations. The spirit of exploration and creative play as we sketch is motivated by joining two ideas or even more in a single sketch on a single piece of paper. It requires a loose and experimental attitude. Exploring this concept is where multiple imaging comes into play. Multiple imaging is where you keep exploring different subjects on the same paper or on the same spread of your sketchbook, layering sketch over sketch, sometimes creating an illusion of motion as you keep layering studies on top of different sketches. These sketches are by Corny Cole, one of my former teachers. These are his multiple image life sketches from a figure drawing class. He would often spend weeks in different life drawing classes sketching from a live model on the same dozen or so mat boards. His use of paint, graphite, and pen on his sketches really pulls the viewer in, but so does the layering of these different sketches. Which brings up the concept of having a sketchbook mindset. Sketching in a sketchbook provides the best vehicle for creative play, in multiple imaging especially. There are fewer pressures to create a quote-unquote perfect drawing. When you're in the sketchbook mindset, no matter what you're sketching on, it could be a sketchbook or a large sheet of paper, experimentation and exploration are the most active. Story and sparking the imagination of your viewer grows out of this experimental attitude. Often ideas will occur to you as you sketch, not before in some pre-planning stage. Just dive right in. By being curious about your subject and refusing to be result-oriented, you'll obtain the best results with your multiple imaging. Eventually, your sketches will be a process and sort of recorder of your thoughts and ideas. The interest in these sketches is in the variety and sometimes motion that is communicated through multiple sketches on one page. Using a previous sketch as a source to observe the next. The first original sketch is inspired by the actual real-life source, but the next sketches are inspired by the sketches that came before it. This process links in sequence. Two distinct sketching modes, observations and personal twists. When you're sketching images on a single sheet of paper, your sketches begin to take shape over time. Your sketching process becomes a time-lapse of your thoughts and subjects. Each additional sketch you add allows you as an artist to build your sketch in separate stages over an extended period of time. Sometimes you'll have a limited amount of time to sketch something and leave it unfinished until you come back to it the next day. When you come back to it later, you may be in a different mood or be working with different sketching materials altogether. For example, I created this sketch over the course of 2 months. It started off as a quick line sketch with pen. A month later, I found it in my sketchbook where I then added the inky wash in the background. Another month, or I think maybe just a few weeks, went by and I added the ink brush marks and color washes. Not necessarily a multiple image sketch, but this is a good example of embracing old sketches over time. With each sketch burst, I was in a different mood, mind frame, and had different sketching materials at hand. When you go back to it, it may be months later and you're looking at different subjects entirely. You simply add new elements to your earlier fragmented sketches. This way you're working in stages, adding different parts at different times. Multiple imaging generates countless ideas. They open possibilities for imaginative work because of the time separation between the sketching stages. Your state of mind when you return to a sketch can be quite different than it was when you started it. This mix of mental states can lead to interesting combinations of images, stories, and outcomes. Multiple imaging enhances and encourages you to embrace fresh seeing, along with radical shifts in your sketching intentions.